Look, as many of you know, on this channel, we don't like unattractive people. We don't approve. We don't like the agenda that they push. We don't like it when they're around children trying to convince us that it's okay to be unattractive. Like, no, nah, like for real, like we got real beef. Also, it's very rare when I talk about dating stuff on here, I say like it's exclusive to women or anything like that. Because most things aren't, men and women aren't that different. However, given how society has socialized us and we've been risen through the ranks of society, I think this is something that's kind of exclusive to women. I've noticed, the bigger proponents of the whole, provider man thing, the whole, pay my rent, pay for my nails, pay for all this stuff, do all this stuff, and I'm not gonna do anything for you. Big proponents of that, I realized, not the best lookers, not the best lookers. I just will say, not all of them, obviously, but I have noticed a lot of the women that like are more attractive tend to be on the you don't need to do all that side. You know what I mean? And I just feel like that, that side makes more sense. But then I'm like, why is this? My theory is, and this, I'm not gonna lie, it feels pretty ironclad, is that these women, certain ones of them, are very like insecure in the concept of, oh, like, does this man like really like me? Like, is he really into me? Like, does he really want me like that? That they need that investment from him as almost like a proof of interest. And also, when I say insecure, keep in mind, maybe it could not be insecure in looks, could be not insecure about, whether or not they're likable, could be financially insecure. It could be one of those things. They could simply be broke and not secure enough in their finances, so they need like a bunch of stuff of that avenue. That's at that avenue though. I get to that much later on. And this isn't me saying like there's like a big discrepancy between like insecure men and insecure women, like there's more insecure women. I don't think that's the case at all, but like I don't know what insecure men do in those situations. Because again, the way we were brought up, like men can't really be like, hey, pay my rent. You know what I mean? Most of the time, men can't do that. Honestly, I would say the insecure men are the ones who like engage with that behavior. Like, I think they both like find each other because I feel like there's nothing more insecure than like buying someone's interest in you. Like, I remember I just made a tweet about today. Someone was like, I saw someone post something about like buying a drink for somebody. And I tweeted, I was like, bro, I cannot believe there are some of you who have like bought drinks for strangers. When I say that, I have never done that. And in all my years of living, I've never bought a stranger a drink in hopes of like, hey, let's talk. Even in a situation where at a club or bar, like I meet someone, we're talking, never even been asked to buy them a drink, which I heard is a thing. Like women will like ask certain men to buy them drinks, which I feel like that's just a bad sign. And you know what the responses to that tweet were though? People were literally asked, someone literally said, what else would I do to get a woman's attention? And I was like, I don't know, be good looking, talk to them. And then people commented, what if we're just nervous? Like, what if we're just shy? Okay, here's my thing about that. If you are too nervous to speak to a woman, like just like plainly, you should be too nervous to buy her a drink. Because like, I truly don't understand. I'm gonna look you in the eye when I say this. Like, are you telling me that you're not more afraid of getting rejected after buying them a drink, after like spending legal tender on someone just for them to reject you, than just for them to like reject you? And look, trust me, I do understand the fear of rejection. That's why personally I don't make moves, okay? But it's different because I'm kind of like undeniably handsome. So it's like the moves just come to me at some point. And look, I'm not self-glazing. I'm not saying that technique would always get me the baddest in the function. It did sometimes though. But like it would more times than not get me a baddie in the function. Here's the thing, you just stand around, looking around, make eye contact with somebody, and then you're like, oh. And then it persists, and then it just becomes a thing, okay? And eventually, they're gonna get tired of like you not coming up to them, and they're just gonna come to you. Because mind you, at that point, they want you. When I tell you, everything is a game of attrition. Y'all know, I've told you the story so many times. Like, I've been in so many situations with women where I've like exhausted them. This is gonna sound so bad, like out of context, but like I've exhausted them into like making moves, into like doing things. Like they're so tired of us just like texting back and forth and not linking up that they're like, oh, like please, like Bryce, you want to link up? Like they're gonna take those steps. They're so tired of us just exchanging looks from like across the function that they're gonna come up to me. You know what I mean? Like that's literally a lot of times how it works. Now, granted, sometimes there are situations where that leads to like just a complete fumble of the situation, but you win some, you lose some. Because trust me, I hate when people like give off the vibe of like, oh, I get any and every woman. Not at all the case. There are definitely times where exchanging glances escalates to nothing because neither of us made a move. Times where I'm texting someone back and forth escalates to nothing because eventually, we just both get like tired of texting. I'm telling you, those moments where it's like, are you gonna come over? Am I gonna come over? Ooh. And there are times where it's like, oh, like, are you gonna ask me to link? Am I gonna ask you to link? Ooh. And then they just get so tired of waiting that they do it themselves. And then they're like, oh, I never do this. It feels good. You love those moments. And that's how you know they're really interested. That's why I like it. I'm like, okay, so you really like me. But there are some women who just are naturally assertive. So it's not always a big thing. But more times than not, it's like a big thing. Cause it's like, ooh, bro, like there's just something about, okay, here's the thing. I'm not a person who negs. But I will say there's something about just like knowing an ego is bruised that feels so good. I've been in so many situations where like once me and the person, like we get past like that awkward stage where we're more open and we just like talk about like how we first met. They're like, oh yeah, I was kind of like trying to hot and cold you. And then I'm like, the thing is, like in more sensitive words, I said like hot and colding does not work on someone who has options. Hot and colding somebody only works when they like exclusively want you. That's why my solution, anytime someone's like telling me like, oh, this person's like playing games, like they're being like weird, bro, talk to somebody else. You know what I mean? Like again, like if you're in a monogamous relationship, you might want to like talk about like breaking up with that person. But I mean, like you're just in a talking stage. You feel like someone's like, oh, like one day they're in, one day they're out. Bro, just start talking to someone else. You're not going to care. The thing is, if that's something they're doing intentionally, they're going to pick up on the fact that you don't care. And then they're going to be like, hey, wait, what? Because then it's going to give them the sensation of you hot and colding them. Because then they're going to be like, oh, like weird. Like, all those posts where it's like, oh, like that guy, like it wasn't really like the one that I wanted, or men definitely do this. I don't know why we don't post about it though. But it's like, oh, like that guy definitely wasn't the one that I wanted. But all of a sudden, like he got a girlfriend. Like, what's up with that? No. And the things, it works like magic because then you genuinely like don't care about what they're doing. Okay, like honestly, that's why the whole nonchalant thing is a problem. If we're being real, like people don't like nonchalant people because that means when they're running their games trying to get attention, they don't actually get that attention. When I was single, I had the roster and someone was like tweaking out, like trying to like fight with me. I'd be like, okay, like yeah, we can like maybe have this little fight or not, depending on how I feel like it. But regardless, I'm gonna start talking to you less and start talking to the others more. I'm starting to start uplifting the rest of the crew, building depth, if you will. You know what I mean? It just works. And you know where that comes from? Being secure. Because I'm telling you, there's nothing that's going to make you feel more secure than having options. You feel at your worst when you have one person and that person is messing up. Oh, literally, like you never feel worse than when it's one person. This is person, the apple of your eyes, who you want forever, and they're just tweaking. You know what I mean? You're worried like, oh, do they like me? Do they not like me? If you're talking to however many people, it doesn't matter. You're like, oh, you don't even ask yourself the question, do they like you that much? I remember like people used to comment all the time when I would talk about the roster. They'd be like, oh, like, have you figured maybe you're just a guy on their roster? Like blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I don't care. Like, I don't care to think. Because I'm not there for the games. I'm there at the time because I wanted to have multiple romantic interests because it made things easier. It makes dating so much easier. When you're getting to know somebody, never do it just one at a time. Like, horrible idea. Like, I could not advise something less than dating like one person at a time, obviously before you enter a monogamous union. Anyways, my point was war of attrition, okay? That would make you win some roster members, lose some roster members, okay? But the fact that you're okay with winning or losing makes you win a lot more. And truthfully, you don't actually have to do much. It's like the people who know that, okay? And the people who don't know that, very like concerned with themselves, like, oh man, like I have to do X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. Those are the ones buying the drinks. Those are the ones buying drinks for young ladies. Because here's my thing has always been, this is always how I've explained it. If the difference between her getting with you and not getting with you is buying her a drink, then clearly she doesn't like you enough. Because what does buying a drink change, okay? Like literally, you're the same guy, you look the same, your personality's the same, probably would have the same exact conversation. The only thing that's different is you spent legal tender. And it's like, I really want to know, like, do you believe that like in your heart of hearts that any guy, no matter how, now I know what some say, but do you really think, the very attractive, like objectively attractive man, I'm trying to think of someone like famous. Say, I don't know, not every woman likes Michael B. Jordan, but it's just a classic example. Like if Michael B. Jordan, like walked up to her, do you think he would have to buy her a drink in order to, get her number, take her home? Nah. And if he did, that would literally just mean she probably wasn't that attracted to him. But it's like, I feel like some men are so insecure that like they refuse. Like they know that's true, but it's like they refuse. Like they either don't want to be alone. They think they're going to get rejected by everybody. Like if they don't like do these certain things, but it's like, nah, bro, like you're good. Unless you're unattractive. Because then I don't know what I can do for you. Then give it a shot. Buy some drinks. Pay that rent. But besides that, like if you're like just a good looking guy, even an average looking guy, I would say. An average looking guy can like pull that off. Now mind you, again, I mentioned I don't really make the first move like when it comes to like stuff like that and like those settings. But like you can make the first move. Like it's not bad. Like I don't think making the first move is bad. Like I would never discourage you from making the first move. It's just I know, it works for me to not make the first move sometimes. And if you don't have to make the first move, why make it? So yeah, that's what the insecure men do. It's crazy how they just link up, like they just find each other. You know what I mean? But as far as women, I wouldn't say it's always insecure. Like in the situation of like a drink, like in that case, you just want free stuff. Like who's not taking a free drink? It's like y'all know, like most of the first dates I've been on, like the woman paid, and honestly, it's not like There's no real sinister underlying meaning. It's just like, man, like why not take a free meal at that point? But it's like once you get past this initial point, once like things like really further, then I feel like there's something deeply like wrong inside. Because again, part of it is if it is like a really big issue that, oh, he's not paying for XYZ, then not doing like all these things, like that is kind of like, you might just not like him. But I will say, even if they like the man a little bit, like even if they like part of him, there's a lot of insecurity there. Okay, like I feel like if you were to like dive into some of these young ladies' brains, you would absolutely see that like they need these things. Oh my gosh, I have a perfect example. I remember one time, I'm so glad I have this example, like just off the top of my head. This girl, it was her birthday. As you know, if you're a long subscriber of the page, me and birthdays have like history. Like I never do good with birthdays. This girl, she was like very needy when it came to gestures, right? Like she never asked me for anything that like cost money or anything like that, but she was always like big on like, oh, like, do this like romantic thing, do this romantic thing. Not necessarily very reciprocal. That's why, things didn't really last. But the thing is, it was like clear, like there were other things. Like it was clear that she like rocked with me, like had very strong feelings towards me. So I was trying to understand, right? But then one day, her birthday, she was mad at me because I didn't like call her like at like 12. And then I also didn't post her. So I'm like, I'm thinking, like, I'm really racking my brain here. Like, what's this about? And when I tell you, like, literally, like, the next day, like, she was, like, crying, like, sobbing, like, uncontrollably about it. And she was like, oh, like, like, do you not like me? Do you not love me? Like, do you not think I'm pretty? I'm like, bro, what are we talking about? So what does that response tell you? It was me not doing that gesture, which, mind you, here's the thing. I understand gestures are important in a relationship, especially if, gestures are important to somebody, but it shouldn't be that big of a thing. You know what I mean? Like you shouldn't be like, when I tell you crying, like scream crying. And the thing is, the whole time I was talking to her, there were like underlying things. Like it would always come up like, oh, like, do I really like her? Do I really have like feelings for her or whatever? Like she was very just like insecure about that. But anyways, like this moment where it was like, oh, like I didn't do like this gesture, which mind you, I didn't do anything. Like I said happy birthday, I just didn't like call, you know what I mean? So it's like this like big gesture signified to her, like me not doing it signified, oh, that like I wasn't into her at all. And that, made her very sad. Because of course you want me to be into you. Like if I wasn't into me, I would be sad too. You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that where it's like, oh, like genuinely, like that was a thing where it's like, I needed to like prove that like I had feelings for her. And here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with being insecure. Most people like I'd say probably 90% of people at least are insecure in some form or fashion. When I'm in a monogamous relationship, like I told you before, like when it's one-on-one, I can definitely be insecure in some ways, okay? Now, obviously some insecurities are more reasonable than others. If I'm yelling at my girl, like, no, stay inside. Like, no, you can't even go to work. Like, I don't want you to see anybody. I don't want anybody to see you, like, your face. Like that's pushing it. Say there's a situation where like, if my girl like left me on red, like she doesn't, but like if she like left me on red for like a day or something, I'd be like, wait, like what's going on? Like I would worry about that. So I like, it's kind of like asking like, oh, I would prefer like for you to like text me back and like I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. It's like, oh, like I would prefer you to text me back in like a reasonable time frame. I think that's a reasonable thing to ask for from a partner, even though it does stem from like true insecurities. Okay, but the more insecure you are, the more you're gonna ask for. Just like I mentioned, like there are like guys who are like, oh, like you can't go outside, you can't do this, you can't wear this. So there are some women when it's like, oh, like they need you to spend money on them, they need you to do like these big like grand things. It is insecurity. Or they really want you to do something that's just inconsequential. You know what I mean? Like the birthday thing. Like it's like I said, happy birthday. Mind you, in the context, there was a reason I didn't call. You know what I mean? It's a long story. But basically, it's like I said happy birthday, but because like there wasn't like a post and like an immediate call, it was like apparently worth like crying your eyeballs out over. And again, the reason for the crying was, oh, you don't love me, you don't like me, like you don't actually want to be with me, blah, blah, blah. So it's like one of those situations where it's like, oh, like, you're kind of like telling on yourself inadvertently, like, oh, like that really is where it comes from. And I'm sure you can imagine, like, see my point, like as these examples get more extreme. So it's like, oh man, if a man doesn't pay my rent, oh, like absolutely not. Like, oh, like if you were really into me, like you would buy me a drink at the bar. If he was really into me, like he'd like ask me on a date, do XYZ, blah, blah, blah. All those things, like you can see the narrative, like it circles back to, oh, if they don't do this, then they're not into me. And honestly, I'm guilty of some of that. Like I told you, I was like, I have like a very big thing. Like when I was single, I was like, oh, if so-and-so, if they don't really make the first move, like if they don't like ask me, like maybe they're just not into me like that. Like I would like view it that way. Like I said, not all insecurities are going to be like horrible or harmful, but like it's insecurities nonetheless. Like true security in a relationship would be like knowing your partner's into you, because they're with you, you know, and like every day, like they do other things to make you secure. Just like again with the whole birthday thing. Like I understand like wanting to be like posted on your birthday, wanting to be called or whatever, but like sobbing uncontrollably because it doesn't happen, that's absolutely indicative of a bigger issue. That's something that should be more of a conversation, okay? You know what I mean? And obviously, like at that moment, she didn't like threaten to like go anywhere. But like there are situations where if you're like, oh, you know, if my man doesn't do X, Y, Z, I'm gonna leave. It's like, why? Especially something where it's like it can't be that big of a deal to you. Like I'm sure there are some women it probably is, but I promise you, to most of these women on the internet saying like they need their man to pay their rent, I refuse to believe it's that big of a deal to them. And honestly, partly to blame is social media, because social media, like there are literally like people who say like, oh, you know, when a man loves you, he's gonna provide. When a man loves you, he's gonna do blah 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 X Y Z, implying that a man who doesn't do those things, there's literally, bro, it's crazy. There is literally like people who say, oh, like if your man is going like 50-50 with you, like if you guys are splitting bills, it's because he's using it to cheat on you with another woman. They're using the insecurity in order to like spread the insecurity along. The thing's, as stupid as it sounds, like that absolutely has invaded the minds of like certain like women who watch those videos. Like there are certain women, I bet, I 100% believe that if a man is like splitting bills with you or making you pay for anything, that somehow means that he's cheating on you. Like making the narrative that if a man doesn't do XYZ, he doesn't like you, is pure insecurity. If there's a single action, I want you to look me in my eyes when I say this. If there's a single action that your partner does that makes you completely think that they don't love you, that they're not into you, that they don't like you at all, that is insecurity. Now, mind you, if multiple things stack up, that makes more sense. Okay, like again, in the instance I gave about the birthday, like say didn't post or call for the birthday, like barely texted, like didn't text back, and let me think, and just like say I even just like forgot the birthday, or like forgot like there was a date on like some day or something like that. You know, like added things like coming together, that's when you actually start to like go like full stop, oh my gosh, this person doesn't like me. But when it's just like one event that's like inconsequential, you know, like you don't really know their intentions, like that's when it's insecurity. So, oh, you know, this man, he didn't buy you a drink, he must not be that into you. Oh, that man, like he's not paying your rent, oh no, he's not into you. They're, like again, like there are literally like there are women where they're like, oh, even if your man makes you pay for like a single date or like a single bill, like even like a utility, like he doesn't like you. If a man doesn't ask you on a date, he doesn't like you. It's just, it's not realistic. Especially, okay, when there's very reasonable reasons that this thing isn't happening. Like not paying your bills, like someone else not paying another like grown adult's bills, I feel like it makes sense for someone to not want to do that. It makes sense that there are some men who just simply aren't gesture people. You know what I mean? Like I know a lot of dudes just don't care about Valentine's Day, so like they don't think to do anything. And mind you, a lot of times these women, they don't do anything for their man themselves. So it's like, what are we really complaining about here? Now I understand. Now there's a difference. If like someone like communicates like, oh, like this thing specifically is like very, very important to me, and then the person like completely like negates that, yeah, of course, like be upset over that. Like if you were told specifically like, oh, like do this, oh, I want you to take me out for dinner on Valentine's Day, and you don't do that, then you know there's much more of a like yo, like do you even care about like my desires type thing? But at the same time, you know, and this goes with the premise of the video, if you're not giving that, why do you need it? Because oh my god, I remember this girl, she was so mad one year that like I didn't get her flowers on Valentine's Day, and in my mind I was like, I wasn't tripping about it because she didn't get me flowers for Valentine's Day. So it's like, what are we talking about? Didn't get me anything for Valentine's Day. So I was like, why are we like what are we worried about here? Like there are a lot of young ladies that feel like when it comes to relationships that they need like a leg up. Like that's why, okay, like that's why, you know, that narrative where it's like, oh, like the guy has to love the girl more, complete insecurity. And I don't want to go too much into that because I feel like it's obvious, but I might go into it. It's just so transparent though. It's like, oh, like let's start this narrative that like, you know, one person has to love another person more, but the person who gets loved more is me. Like it has to be me. If I don't get loved more, it's not gonna work. You know, like again, and that's literally what they say. They're like, oh, like, you know, if you love the guy more, they're gonna do you dirty, blah blah blah. Pure insecurity. Like again, people say these things out loud, and the things that's it's funny. Like people get mad, like of these demographics get mad when I say these things, when I bring it up, but it's like they themselves say it. People love being insecure and then saying something isn't an insecurity. Like you know how they say, you know, liking Instagram pics, like say like a man, your boyfriend or whatever, like likes a thirst trap. It's like, oh, like that, like he can't do that, blah 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 blah. And someone's like, oh, like that's insecurity, and they're like, no, it's not about insecurity. It's not. I don't think like these women are better than me. It's just about respect. Here's the thing: if you truly thought that like your man was never gonna like leave you for these women or like try to like cheat on you with one of these women, you wouldn't care what he liked. Now, mind you, that is an insecurity, and insecurity I think is valid. I don't think you should be liking like thirst traps when you're with somebody. But let's not act like that's not an insecurity. It's like you're insecure about the fact that he's liking another woman's post. You're insecure about how that may look to others, because that's one of the things they say. They're like, oh, I know how women are. Like, it's like if I see that he likes like a guy with a girlfriend likes my post, I look at her like crazy, blah blah blah. You're insecure about what other people are going to think about you. And again, men make the same argument when it comes to like what their woman wears. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, like I don't even know what they say. It's like somehow it's disrespectful for women to like dress revealing when they're in a relationship. I've never understood that. You're like, oh, like they're gonna get more attention from men, and it's like, bro, if you're secure in your relationship, now mind you, if you're afraid of her getting like, for one, if you're afraid of getting her getting assaulted, it doesn't matter what she wears. Okay, unfortunately, like there's not a dress code that will stop you from getting assaulted. But also, it's like if you're worried about like, oh, you know, it's gonna bring more male attention, blah blah blah. It's like if you're really like so sure that like she's not gonna do anything, it wouldn't matter to you. You know what I mean? So it's like you're insecure and like, oh, like she might choose another guy over you. And personally, I think that insecurity is far less reasonable because again, it's like I feel like people should just be able to wear the clothes that they want. But you know, like it's just things like that. Like so much of like in a relationship where it's like, don't do this. Not gonna lie, very hot take. Not wanting your partner to cheat is a very, very reasonable insecurity. I shouldn't say cheat. I say not wanting your partner to sleep with other people. People say all sorts of stuff like, oh, you know, it could be like dangerous. What if they catch a disease? Take the disease out of it. Okay. Take these like scenarios of like, oh, they get someone pregnant or they get pregnant or like they get disease. Take this out of it. Just say they're sleeping with another person who's tested, clean, everything's fine. You still wouldn't want that. Reason being, you want to be the only person for your partner. There being another person involved makes you insecure. You can't tell me that people who get cheated on like don't feel insecure about how their partner feels about them. Like it's absolutely unequivocally 100% insecurity, but it's not a bad insecurity. It's an insecurity that makes sense because it's almost like a universal thing. Okay, like if you're not polyamorous, most people don't want their partner sleeping with other people. So it just makes sense. An insecurity that we as society deemed acceptable. You know, and again, I'm very very supportive of that, you know, but despite all that, it's still insecurity and we can't sit here and pretend it's not. So you see what I'm getting here. Okay, anytime you put any sort of restriction or you want to make your partner like do something, oftentimes that comes from a place of insecurity. Now mind you, there are some things where it's like, oh, you know, I like the concept of like baking with a partner or cuddling at night, like certain things like that. Those are just like compatibility things, like, oh, this is something I enjoy. If you don't enjoy this, might not be the best for each other. But when it comes to like, oh, you have to do this thing, especially in a situation where you're not doing the thing, insecurity, especially when the reasoning for them doing the thing is, oh, you know, if they're not doing that, please, they don't love you. They couldn't. A man who loves his woman is gonna provide. I don't know if you guys remember that TikTok trend when they were doing the whole I can't pay my half of the rent thing, and they painted it in the weirdest way. So basically, you know, it was like their women, they would come to their like husbands or boyfriends and say that they couldn't pay their half of the rent. Now it started off as like a silly joke because the man paid all the rent. He was like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't pay the rent. Ha ha ha. But then couples where, you know, they split the rent, the husband was more concerned. Like, what? Like, how can you not pay the rent? Like, what's going on? They literally tried to use that to paint the picture of like, oh, like, do you see like these 50-50 men? Like they clearly just they're not really into their wife. Like they speak like very like harshly towards her. It just seems like not a happy situation. Mind you, obviously a situation in which I'm trying to think of a situation. If I'm with my girl's like 5'3". If she was like, sorry, Bryce, like I think if someone like I'm 6'6", by the way, but if she was like, oh, like if someone attacked us tonight, I don't know if I'd be able to defend you. I would giggle because I'd be like, of course, if someone were to attack us, I would be the one to defend us. Now, mind you, actually, my girl, she's actually like cracked at Taekwondo. So she probably like could defend us. Like one thing about my girl, bro, she's like, this is random, but like she's like good at everything. Like literally, like anything you can think of, if she's tried it, she's like excellent at it. She's amazing at like when I tell you, I thought I was good at chess. I played this woman, completely demolished me. Okay, and like in my like I'm 1300 rated chess. I don't know if y'all know about chess, but when I tell you, like she demolished me with ease every time. So I don't know what rating that is, but she's cracked at chess. Okay, she can ride motorcycles, she can surf. She's like an Olympic level swimmer. Like she hasn't done it in a while, but like like when she was like swimming, like she was cracked at it. She can cook amazingly. And here's the thing. My girl's South Asian, right? But when I tell you, she brought up mac and cheese the other day, and I was like, I know you cook black people mac and cheese. And she's like, what do you mean by that? And I explained it to her, and she was like, Yeah. And she like laughed about it. Bro, I just like anytime she's good at something, there's like another level that like she's good at. Incredibly smart. Incredibly smart. Want to like anything that like she wants to do with her life, she can do it. You know, like want to about like I'm not gonna like put her business out there, but the amount of opportunities that she's turned down, ridiculous. Like I've never met like any human being who was like better at like just like everything. Cause like now mind you, I know people like Micah Parsons. Like I mean I don't know him like actively, but like I was on team when he was there. Bro, Micah Parsons, very like just like cracked at football, cracked at most things athletic, super competitive. I think he was like good at Madden too. But you know, like obviously like there are some gaps in like the things that he's good at. She's like good at everything. I'm like, bro, what? It's like I need you to look me in my eye. Like when I tell you like good at I mean everything, bro. Like things where it would make no sense for her to be good at. It's like how? Like what are you talking about? The one thing I've ever heard her say she was bad at was Marvel Rivals, okay? But I think I'm not gonna lie. I think she's faking it to like make me feel better. Which I would hate it if she's doing that. I hate when people like fake things, okay? But like, yeah, that's the one thing that like I've seen her like not be like completely like cracked up. Everything else just ridiculously good. Please do not tell her I said any of this though. Like, yeah, don't let her know I was glazing. I don't want to lose the social upper hand. So, anyways, but you know, still I'm a larger man. Like if someone came at us, I don't know. I feel like I'd have no choice but to protect us. So in that situation where it's like if she were to make a joke like, oh, like I can't protect us, I would laugh. Like I would find it funny. But like say I was in a situation with like one of my friends like from football or whatever, you know, they're about my size, like really like big guy, and he's like, yo, bro, like, you know, if you get into a fight tonight or I get into a fight, like I can't do any fighting. Like you're gonna have to do all of it. I'd be like, bro, like and like it was like a genuine concern. I'd be like, bro, what? Like what do you mean? Because it's like there's an expectation where it's like we're both on the same level here. So it's like you telling someone that obviously pays all the rent that you're not going to pay rent obviously is going to make them like more laugh or they're not really going to care about it. But if you tell you agree with somebody that like, hey, I'm going to pay half the rent, you're going to pay the other half. If you don't come with your half, obviously they're going to be a bit concerned. It's a crazy number of like Americans who live paycheck to paycheck. Bro, imagine living paycheck to paycheck and like your rent just like doubles out of nowhere. Like like no, like yeah, you would definitely be like, yo, like what's going on? But again, they tried to paint that trend as like, oh, they seem to really not like their wives, the ones who go 50-50. Oh yeah, and the whole thing where it's like, oh, like, you know, he's going 50-50 with you, but like with his dream woman, he wouldn't go 50-50, which is a ridiculous concept, by the way. Like they always say like, oh, you know, he would provide for his dream girl. It's like, bro, if she made me provide, she wouldn't be my dream girl. You know what I mean? Like they try to paint this narrative. Like the internet's like actually a problem. Now I hate when people are like, oh, like the internet's a massive problem. Like I feel like it's corny, but like low key, like when it comes to stuff like this, like just them allowing it to be illustrated that like, oh, you know, if your man doesn't do this for you, he must not love you. When 99% of the time, that's simply not true. So now there are a bunch of women out there thinking, oh, if a man doesn't do this for me, he must not love me. But mind you, the more secure women out there, they're not requiring that. Like anyone I've talked to who's been like just overtly confident, you know what I mean? Like due to what, like I've talked to like women who've like modeled like in like a bunch of like stuff. So like they're very confident like in their appearance, like confident in like their charm or whatever. So like they have never been the ones who would like tweak out over something like that or like expect something that like they weren't giving up. As a matter of fact, they were actually just generally like much more generous. But the women who were like, oh, you didn't do this random inconsequential thing for me? That I didn't tell you that I wanted? Oh, no, 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 no. Like those ones always, like I would talk to them, there would always be some lore, you know, behind them being insecure. Always like, oh, like, you know, I'm not the most confident in myself, blah, 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 blah. It's like they're scared. It's like they have like a genuine fear of like, oh my gosh, if like this doesn't happen, this means they must not like me. When more confident, secure people are like, oh, like, they obviously like me, you know, because I'm me and they're here. And like, you know, they look at like all the other signs. Because keep it a buck with you, like someone, just the concept of someone like spending time with you consistently, pretty sure they like you quite a bit. Most times. Obviously, sometimes there are like exceptions where people are like playing like a long game or something, but you know, most times. So for someone to be like, oh, you know, they only did this much on Valentine's Day, or oh, you know, they didn't do this. They're not paying my rent. They don't pay for my nails. Oh, they don't pay for every meal. Like, do they not like me? Do they not like me? Just pure like insecurity. Because truthfully, if they didn't like you, why would they be there? And often, again, mind you, these are the same ones that most likely make men pursue them and make men make all the first moves. The the way that like you will make someone make all the first moves and still be like, man, they don't like me if they don't do this is absolutely crazy. Now, mind you, okay, again, like because a lot of people like throwing things out there like, oh no, sometimes like, you know, men pursue and then they go away. You know, sometimes you get to know someone and you realize you don't like them. Okay, it's as simple as that, and then they skedaddle. But it's like I could not imagine. I can imagine being in a relationship with somebody where like I'm like, they're like making me like take them out on dates like consistently, or let's just say I offer to like take them out on dates consistently, and they're questioning if I like them. Like what? 'Cause I like, oh man, you think I'm offering to spend my legal tender, please, because it just simply does not make sense. And you know what? The thing is, this leads to a lot of self-sabotaging in relationships. You know, it's like they look at these small, inconsequential things and they're like, oh, he must not like me this much because of all these things. Now, like, I can't give like too much energy because, again, I can't like him more than he likes me. And then it's like they start tweaking and like doing things where it's like, okay, now he actually doesn't like you because now you're being weird, you're being distant. And now it's giving him time to like spread his wings and be like, you know what, maybe I want to be with somebody else. You have to be comfortable putting your best foot forward. You got to be comfortable doing things for your partner. If they are indeed like you're in a monogamous union. Now, talking stage stuff, like I understand you don't want to like, it's kind of just a talking stage. But again, when you have like expectations of somebody that you yourself don't fulfill, that's not okay. When you have a standard of people you date, you yourself should meet that standard. Obviously, besides the looks, like if you say like you want to date someone like tall, but like you're short, like that obviously doesn't matter. It's like there's a lot of people, out there who they're like, oh, I need my man to do X, Y, Z, this, and this, because that's the only way they actually feel secure in the relationship. A man spending money on them is the only way they actually feel like secure, which is so sad. And also, there is kind of like an angle of, oh, at least like say like everything. I've seen a woman say this, I forgot how it was posted, but it was like, oh, like, at least if everything like goes to shit, right? Like the talking stage doesn't work, like the relationship doesn't work, at least like I got like certain things paid for, at least like I came out of it like monetarily like better off. And that's insane to me. And I think the person who made that post like tried to justify it by saying like the patriarchy, like women like deserve that like security or whatever. But it's like, nah, again, you can't expect security from someone you're not offering security to. Again, it's the same thing like men who are like sleeping around with whoever, but they find out someone on the roster is sleeping with someone else and they tweak over it. Like you can't do that. Like you're a tweaker. But yeah, bro, insecurity. You hate to see it, man. I'm so glad this thought came to my mind. You know what I mean? And in the caption, it's gonna be unattractive, but just know I'm talking about insecure. But a lot of times people are insecure because they're unattractive. Like the baddest of the baddest. How often are they gonna be insecure? And again, as I've seen, the baddest of the baddest, at least that I've interacted with, and a lot of stuff I've seen, they're not on that type of timing of like, oh, like do this thing that I'm not going to do for you. I haven't seen it. Now, mind you, I have seen like, someone who's like more like objectively attractive, like be on that kind of timing. But, obviously there's going to be exceptions. Just like, there's a lot of like beautiful people who feel very insecure. Maybe they grew up unattractive even, stuff like that happens all the time. But I'm just saying most attractive people, I don't see on that type of timing. Like who's that? What was that? It was, I think his name was like Jalen Noble or something. His girl, like I think they're like an attractive couple. They were not. He's not a provider man, and everyone was so mad about that. But it's like the relationship works for them. I hope they didn't break up when I said this. I'm gonna have to check. Okay, so I think they're still together. And if you don't know who those people are, like Jalen Noble and his girl, I don't know what their names are. I don't know. Like I don't know who they are either. It doesn't matter. Just know they're two like pretty attractive people got together, not going in provider mode. And the thing is, his woman not only secure in herself, but secure in her money. You know what I mean? And so it's like there's a lot of elements to like being secure that they're just not on that type of time. And that's the other thing. It's like it's not even just being like secure in yourself. Like if you're financially secure, you're not going to need all those things. You know what I mean? And you see it all the time. It's like, oh, like, I can pay my own rent. Like why would I need like a man, And it's like, yeah, like I think there are more reasons to get involved with a man than the concept of him paying your rent. I'm getting at though. So it's like people who do that, it's like they're either financially insecure in their looks, insecure in their likability / lovability. It's all there. And I'm trying to think if I want to cut in earlier in the video somewhere and say financial insecurity. I might and I might not. It doesn't really matter. Because I mean, insecurity is insecurity at the end of the day. And you get the gist, okay? And I either added that in or I didn't add that in. But anyways, if you're here, you're a real one and you get the gist. Thanks for watching. I'm trying to think. Oh my gosh, there was something I wanted to say. I forgot. Anyways, state of affairs. You may not know this. You may not feel the vibes. But this is the... Wait. I can count. Wait, no. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You probably have no idea what I'm doing right now. I'm on my computer. I gotta count something because I'm low-key like tired. This is the 4th video I've recorded in this day, and I think it's a long one. So just so you know, I'm on that streak of like, recording like a bunch of videos in one day. This and the next 3 videos you see are gonna be me recording in one day. I don't know why. I think that's cool. I hope it's cool to you as well. Because while you're watching this, I'm gonna be with my girl. I'm visiting her because well, I miss her and whatnot. And also, like we weren't like physically together for my birthday or Valentine's Day, so we're kind of making up for that. But yeah, I feel like I'm so sorry. I feel like I be feeling like I have more, but not gonna lie. Again, like if I hopefully I just remember in like the next few videos, or it's just simply not that deep. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Everything I have to say, I'm so sorry. And I love you platonically. Again, my girl makes me say platonically because I don't know. But yeah, have a good day, night, morning, evening.